But welcome back, PS. Let's pick up from where we had left, because you're talking about a part of what this legislation seeks to address is to ensure a smooth transition of executive authority, not just from the president, but even those that have been appointed by the president that is exiting. You were talking about the second point that you wanted to eliminate.
Yeah, the bill proposes also a transition center to be established for the transition committee to operate from during that transition period. It also proposes a transition secretariat to assist the transition committee to do that work. There is something very important, John, that that the bill is also introducing. Yes. That in case the outgoing president is not able to attend the ceremony, the handing over, the swearing, the assumption of office of the president-elect ceremony, what happens to the instruments of power? The current law talks about the outgoing president handing over the instruments of power, which is the sword and the constitution, to the incoming president. But it is silent on what happens in case the outgoing president is not able to attend. Do we stop there? And what happens? There's a lacuna there. So the current law is the current proposal, legislative proposal is proposing what the county governments act, what the senators did to the County Governments Act when it comes to governance. So the proposal is that in case the outgoing president is not able to attend the ceremony, then the ceremony will proceed. But then it will not, the absence of the outgoing president will not nullify the entire assumption of office, the assumption of office of the president. It will proceed, and it will be considered that the assumption of office of the president has taken place. Quite a number of proposals, John. There is also a transition period where the bill is proposing the do's and don'ts during that transition period. Normally, towards elections, a lot of resources are lost. Yeah. Resources can be used unconsiderably. At the end of the day, if you do the analysis, you'll realize that there's no value for what was done during that period. So the bill is proposing the do's and don'ts during that transition period. It is then proposing that the cabinet secretaries should not appoint people to parastatals, during that transition period, which is a period 90 days to election and 90 days after the assumption of the office by the president-elect. So it's a very good bill. It's actually trying to safeguard the future of our democracy. Yeah.
Quite an interesting proposal.
It's actually in public participation now. It's in Parliament. The committees, the Parliament is still working on it, and the public has an opportunity to contribute to it. Yeah.
Now that you've spoken about public participation, let's talk about the impact of public participation in government policies and what you have been able to do. So that we also talk about the remarks made just the other day by the Prime Cabinet Secretary on cost-effective public participation.
John, public participation is a constitutional imperative. And the onus lies on us, the public officers and public entities, to involve the citizens on programs and legislation and policy initiatives that they are working on. It is designed to ensure that the citizens are involved in decision-making processes, and they are involved in what is affecting their lives. So it is something that you cannot avoid. It must be done. Over years, John, since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, we've not had a standalone public participation bill. Cabinet had a discussion on the same, and directed the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Attorney General's Office to work on the public participation bill.
Yes.
The bill is currently at public participation. It's a public participation bill and it's currently at public participation. But over the years, the last about 15 years or so, we've been relying on the court's decisions on how we are supposed to carry out public participation as a country. There is need to have a standalone, as I told you. So courts have come up with several thresholds on how we should be doing public participation. And MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies have been having challenges on the extent to which they are supposed to do public participation.
Yeah.
So this public participation bill is very critical for us as a country. And I call upon the public to engage with this public participation bill so that it will ensure that the principles, look at the case laws, courts have come up with a lot of principles around public participation. Principles like you need to ensure that there is reasonable opportunity to participate by people, reasonable access to information, and then you ask yourself, what does reasonable mean? So this public participation bill will help us to go around that and ensure that we have quality public participation that will help us achieve the initiative that we have.
Let me ask, PS, in this public participation bill that you say is currently in the public participation space, during its formulation, did you consider the different interpretations given by the judiciary regarding what public participation ought to be?
Exactly, John. All the team went through all the judicial cases or rulings and extract the principles that the courts have proposed to be the right way of doing public participation, and all those principles have been inputted into the public participation bill. So the bill is well informed. It's a lot of stakeholder engagement was done in the development of that bill.
All right.
Yeah.
There were remarks that repeated to the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and I think he's repeated them almost 2 or 3 times, regarding cost-effective public participation.
Yes.
Is it a cost analysis that this office has been able to do and realize that probably your public participation is such a tedious, expensive process, so that the Prime Cabinet Secretary says it is a principle enshrined in the Constitution, but we need to revisit the cost?
Yes, Joe, that's really a discovery as a result of what we do as a State Department, coordinating the government legislative agenda. As I told you earlier, government legislative agenda is about policies, it's about legislative initiatives which becomes bills, and it's about statutory instruments or regulations. Now, in the process of coordinating, we tried to find out then what is the cost of coming up with these legislative initiatives. As we speak, we have over 25 legislative initiatives that we project to work on as a government. That is to align with the National Development Agenda, to align with the Constitution, to align with the development goals that we have. Now, analyzing the cost of each initiative, it's coming to a huge figure, Joe. The entire process of legislative initiative, which I told you last time, when you're developing a legislation, it's not just a one-point step. It's a series of steps that are involved. When you look at this series of steps, the step that takes a lot of resources is at public participation. As I said earlier, public participation is a must-do, it's a constitutional imperative. But then we need to look at the cost also. And I repeat the question that the Prime Cabinet Secretary said the other time. Are we cost-effective in matters public participation? Because if a legislative initiative requires a ministry to have around 10 to 100 million to develop that legislative initiative, then we still need to ask ourselves, how do we approach this so that we use little resources to achieve what we want? John, if you do that calculation, about 25 initiatives, assuming you use the list, because from the record that we have, from the report that we have, after collecting, I told you we have a list of all the legislative initiatives that we are working on them, together with their estimated cost. So the least cost that we have is around 10 million. So assuming you take that, but others can go even up to 150 million. Assuming you take the least, which is 10 million, meaning to process about 700 legislation, that will require you around how much? Good amount of money.
Yeah.
So we need to ask ourselves as a country, yes, we must do public participation, but let's see how best we can approach this so that we save resources for projects that citizens are waiting for. Citizens are waiting for roads, they are waiting for water, they are waiting for all those projects that, they'd want to have. But here, they also have a right for public participation. How do we approach this so that at the end of the day, we've achieved the legislative initiative that we want with proper public participation, but we've also saved resources to use in delivering on the national development agenda. Now, remember again that the Constitution requires the executive to do public participation. At the same time, it requires the legislature to do public participation. So I will spend here probably a ministry A or B can spend here probably 20 million on a piece of legislation, right? Or 10 million, according to what we collected. Assuming it spends 10 million, then it goes to Parliament. That is one piece of legislation. Then it goes to Parliament. Parliament spends the same amount again. At the end of the day, if you analyze, it's a conversation that we must have. How do we approach this so that at the end of the day, we've achieved the legislative initiative that we want, but we've also saved on cost. And also the citizens have participated effectively and efficiently on the development of this initiative. The
last time we spoke, we were talking about how your State Department, in conjunction with the National Assembly and the Senate, also have smoothened some of the teething problems you experienced, obviously after the introduction of members of the executive in the plenary of both houses of Parliament. We didn't talk about the challenges that still exist now. What are the challenges, even after smoothing some of these things? What are some of the challenges you're experiencing in trying to build that synergy between yourselves and the legislature?
Okay, John, before I list the challenges that you're experiencing now, probably I touch on some of the challenges, some of the issues that we had earlier as we were establishing or operationalizing the State Department. One of them was the silo operations of ministries and departments and agencies. Every ministry was doing their own things, and as I told you last time, that would lead to overlaps and duplication of work. And that was one of the challenges. But this State Department came to sort out that because, as I told you, we are there to unlock the bottlenecks, to unlock the issues that are impeding the progress of a legislative initiative. So the issue of silo operations by ministries, departments, and agencies has been sorted by our existence. Because now we are here coordinating, and therefore we would know what everyone is doing. If there is duplication, we are there to sort. If there are stakeholder issues, then we are there to sort out as State Department in the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. So that is one. Number two was unclear processes. The processes on from the inception to the end, or to the stage where the legislative initiative should move to Parliament were not very clear. And therefore, ministries and departments and agencies were struggling on the stages, the clear stages on how to follow to have the initiatives flow. That has been sorted. That has been sorted by the development of the national government guidelines for the development of national policies and legislation, which was developed by the State Department in consultation with State Law Office and the Kenya Law Reform Commission and KIPRA and so many other institutions. So that challenge has been sorted out. Number 3 is the issue of the cost or budget constraints.
Yes.
Yeah, budget constraints. Ministries have been having these initiatives, but the budgetary constraints have been limiting them from progressing these initiatives ahead. That is a challenge that we still have up to now. I've told you the cost of doing this is too high, especially the cost of doing public participation. That challenge is still there to date, and we are trying to crack how we can approach that. Even after we have the public participation bill approved into law, then as we work on this, we need to have this conversation on how can we be cost effective as we develop this initiative. Because you know what, John, the development of legislative initiatives and policies is a continuous thing because of emerging issues. Now we are talking about the artificial intelligence, which was not there some few years ago. And therefore, we need to have laws that are protecting our people from these the emerging issues that are coming. So the challenge that I've told you, the budgetary constraint is still there. But we need to go around and see how best we can sort out that, because we cannot afford to spend 10 million on processing one legislation. We have to see what are these cost drivers that we need to deal with for us to be able to come up with these initiatives. Another point, another challenge that was there is what I said the other time. We are in presidential system of government. When we were in the parliamentary system of government, the parliament could easily know what is happening in the executive because we had members in parliament that were also members of the executive. Now, with presidential system of government, there was no seamless engagement between the two arms of government. Remember we said these two arms of government are independent, but because they share the same national values, then we need to collaborate for us to deliver on national interest. So that was a challenge that was there. But this State Department has come to be a bridge between the legislative arm and the executive arm.
All right.
Another challenge that was there was these parliamentary liaison services that were not effective. You see, we are now able to process parliamentary inquiries very fast because we have parliamentary liaison services in place. And we've done a lot of capacity building to parliamentary liaison officers across ministries and departments, and merge them or introduce them to parliamentary processes. They can interact with the clerks and the officers in Parliament in case there is a question or an inquiry from Parliament that needs a ministry to respond to. There is that now seamless engagement between the two arms of government through parliamentary liaison services. So the challenges that were there were many, but with the existence of this State Department, most of those challenges have been sorted out. I think the key one that we need to crack it out is the cost of doing a legislation.
The budget. All right.
Yes.
Let's use the remaining 2 minutes and talk about the reforms in parastatals that were instituted by the administration of President William Ruto. Of course, this brings a lot of legal reforms that need to be instituted and taken to Parliament to bring synergy in terms of how some of these, some of them will be phased out. And I'm sure probably for the State Department it could be a headache of what it is. But tell us how you're faring in terms of ensuring that even this phase out of some of these parastatals is actually backed by law.
It's very true that early this year, I think it was 21st January to be precise, Cabinet sat and considered a CAP memo that was taken to Cabinet on state corporation reforms. And indeed, Cabinet agreed to implement the state corporation reforms, to dissolve some of the state corporations, to restructure some, to merge some, so as to increase the operation efficiency and also deal with redundancy. As a State Department coordinating this GLA, the Government Legislative Agenda, I can tell you that we had legislative proposals from some of those state corporations that are going to be merged, others which are going to be dissolved. We had some legislative proposals from them through their ministries. But now our State Department is going to work with the parent ministry for those state corporations to harmonize the government legislative agenda to align with what the cabinet agreed on that day. So it's just a matter of harmonizing
that is the remaining bit,
agenda.
Harmonizing for it. I want you to take a minute and look at that camera there, so that you are also able to explain to Kenyans particularly on how they can engage the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs. I know there are public participation exercises coming in these coming days. How do they get to be part of that public participation exercise? Through that camera, PS.
Maybe I'll start by saying this, that citizens have a right to be sensitized on what is happening. The ministries and state departments have been publicizing their public participation through print media, social media. But we've come out as a State Department also to complement, to support the ministries and departments by publicizing the reviews of policies and legislative initiatives through our social media platforms. So you can be checking on the State Department of Parliamentary Affairs platform to check what is under review within that week. And I want to close by saying the relationship or the synergy between the legislature and the executive is sincerely not a luxury. It is a necessity for a democratic nation. For the progress of a democratic nation, there is need to have a synergy between the two arms of government. So this will ensure that we deliver the greatest good for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daktari, and we wish you all the best as you continue to dispense your duties as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs. It's an onerous duty, of course, and of course not so many people understood the release of Executive Number 1 that allocated these duties of coordination of, the Executive and Parliament to the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. But I'm sure within these 2 episodes that we've had on Prime Edition, Kenyans have been able to appreciate the kind of work you're doing, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to having more.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The Principal Secretary, State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Aurelia Rono, speaking to us really regarding the relationship between the Executive and the Legislature. She says it is not a luxury, it is very important in a growing democracy like Kenya's. This is where we put a cap on this end of Radio's headquarters. Back to you, Doreen and the team in studio.